My name is Eric Johnston, and I'm the founder of the Veteran Tales Project. This interview is with Dick Peasley. This is part 2 of a 3-part series of Mr. Peasley's entire interview. Part 1 was of Mr. Peasley talking about his flight experiences flying as a CH-46 helicopter pilot in Vietnam. This part 2 will be of him talking about flying as Ronald Reagan's presidential helicopter pilot on board Marine One. In part 3, Mr. Peasley talks about his experiences of being one of the original 5 test pilots selected on the V-22 Osprey tilt rotor program. Thank you for watching. We hope you like his interview.
I like the Marine Corps motto that I'd heard about. They always take care of their own. And that whole year, up until January, we were preparing ourselves to go to Vietnam. Well, the very first time I really remember getting shot at, I was a co-pilot. Because there's no leaving and coming back. I mean, you orchestrated the play. And then spent 2 years flying President Reagan when I was a commanding officer. Great motivational speech.
He was always good.
Yeah. And then he says, "But I can't tell if you're hearing me. Can you hear me?" And every white hat, that ship went flying. So we're sitting up there and see all these white hats flying. And he starts,
at the same time.
Yeah, he starts, continues his talk. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
When my year in Vietnam ended, I said, well, this is a time to readjust my thinking, which way I'm going to go in aviation, which way I'm going to go in the Marine Corps, what do I want to do. Leaned on a friend and I asked him to take me into HMX, the Marine Helicopter Squadron that flew the President. I said, I've got this much flight time, I've flown CH-46s, which was a stable for the presidential helicopter support, and I flew Cobras, which was of absolutely no help to the squadron. But I was kind of a Huey guy, also because it's the same airframe, and Hueys were also flown by the squadron. But they liked me because of maintenance experience and also had a lot of flight time, so I could meet their minimum requirements very easily as to being able to move into the presidential mission. Because to fly in that environment, you need to have so many flight hours. And I can't remember now, but it was probably 2,500 flight hours. So that was exciting. We were on our way to the East Coast. The kids had never been on the East Coast, and my wife had never been in the Washington area, so it was a fun experience. And we stayed there for several years. Worked initially in the maintenance department. Flew the CH-46, flew the UH-1Ns, flew the H-3, which is obviously the presidential helicopter aircraft, and also flew the CH-53. So while I was in the maintenance department, I was flying 4 different helicopters, flying as a co-pilot on presidential missions, flying VIPs around the world, having a ball, and working with fun people. The last year in the mission, I worked for the White House, and I was really the liaison officer between the squadron and the White House, and we would plan presidential trips. So we would go off 2 or 3 months ahead of time, take a look at the operating area where the president was going to speak, land, visit school, go to foreign countries where he was going to land or meet people. And there were always these economic summits or something like that. So there was ample opportunity to travel, which was fun. And interfacing with foreign people about helicopters and where we needed to land and work and what kind of facilities we needed. So it was a really...
You're traveling to foreign countries with helicopters. Would you just cargo them in the C5 or C-141 or something like that?
Put them in the C5 primarily.
Okay.
So C5s were available at that time. There were quite a few around, so we could put any number of helicopters we needed in one C5 and truck off to wherever we needed to go. Yeah, we went to Germany, Poland with Ford. We went to we went to South America, Mexico, various places. So it was.
The first president you were with was Carter, right?
Was there during the Ford administration.
Oh wow!
But I didn't work in the White House liaison part of the squadron during the Ford administration. I moved there during the Carter administration.
Okay.
Just about the time, almost the day Carter took office was the day that I transitioned into that. So I made the first helicopter trip to Plains, Georgia. I was the guy on the ground who set up the landing zone, organized the place for the pilots to stay, and communications that we needed as the presidential helicopter relationship to the Secret Service and the White House communications people. So all that presidential support stuff had to be coordinated for the helicopter side of the mission.
So when you first started, you didn't fly Ford, but you flew Carter, right?
Yeah, I flew co-pilot on Ford a couple times.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Because every pilot in the squadron serves for 1 week as the co-pilot from the presidential team.
Okay.
And then the commanding officer is the presidential pilot, and then for that 1 week you serve as his co-pilot. And you keep track of scheduled events, you keep track of the weather, you keep track of the material condition of the helicopter, so you're doing all these things so that 1 week you're just really focused on that. And you get a chance to fly as co-pilot on a presidential mission. So the first time you go into the White House as a co-pilot, it's pretty exciting, you know. The fact that you're going to see the President of the United States, you're going to land on his lawn, you're going to see the crowds, you know, and you're well trained on all the things you have to do to assist the commanding officer with landing the helicopter on the lawn, and you're usually so awestruck by the things you're looking at, you totally forget what you're supposed to do.
What are the duties when you're coming?
Well, you got radio calls to make. You got to clear the rotors from the trees and stuff on your side. You know, that's not that big a deal. But landing on the lawn is another kettle of fish. I mean, that is a challenge.
Really?
Because you have small discs, plywood discs that are more like 5.5 feet across, and you have 3 of those discs, 1 for each landing gear, the tail wheel, and 2 for the main mounts. So you have to give directions to the pilot, the commanding officer, as to his height and distance from the disc, and the trick is to come to a hover behind the disc and then slowly taxi forward, come over the disc, and then you say land, and then he touches down.
Okay.
So you've got to forget looking at the all the people and smiling for the cameras and all that other stuff. You got to start being a part of the team and paying attention.
Yeah.
So, you know, once you've done it a couple times, then it's more routine, but the first time is really eye-opening.
Yeah, I remember you saying that there was also guidelines as far as off the 90 degrees off your shoulder and
Yes.
direct ahead that the pilot of the PIC would reference.
He references the one that's directly ahead of him. He just keeps himself lined up with that line.
We should put his main, or both mains.
But puts both mains and the tail wheel in the right lineup, but he doesn't know how high he is or how far back he is.
Okay.
And then you have another line off to the side of the helicopter so that when it's immediately to your off your left shoulder,
Okay.
as a co-pilot, you say, then you know you're over it. And you can also look down and see where the main mount is in relation to the actual disc. So you're talking all the time.
Yeah.
And you're talking on the intercom. And got to be careful that you're talking on the intercom, not on the radio.
Right.
Except
other people inside the helicopter can hear you.
Yeah. So I've done all those things wrong once or twice. So that was really exciting, and I enjoyed getting to see that. The Carter administration was a challenge to work for. I mean, they wanted to nitpick the way we did business under the Ford administration. The Ford administration, I thought, was a very professional outfit. They took the right number of people, the right number of helicopters to do the mission. Carter wanted to cut back on everything. In fact, first thing Carter did when he joined the White House, or took office, was he disbanded the Army Presidential Helicopter Group, which had been there since the Johnson administration. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. But then he got rid of our small helicopters, the Hueys, the twin-engine Huey helicopter that was the backup helicopter, and the one we used for a lot of presidential support missions where we weren't scheduled to fly the president in a presidential lift, but we were there for medical evacuations or emergency evacuations because it had radios that he could talk to White House or other people that he needed to talk to during an emergency. So that helicopter was handy to have, easily transportable. And
Huey?
Huey.
Did you guys have the Blackhawks at that point? Or
No.
They were later, right?
Came later.
Okay.
So he got rid of those helicopters. So, I thought that was short-sighted, but it was a big political thing that he was saving money. And of course, at that time,
Like cutting back his transportation fleet.
yeah, setting the standard for everybody else. And that was good because, the politics at that time, the inflation rate was like 13%, and that was terrible. So I had a fun tour. But we joined HMX again, and it was like old home week coming back because I was working with people I knew in the Marine Corps, and the man who asked me back was a very good friend of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Terry Dake, who was just an outstanding Marine officer. Later became Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, 4-star general, and wonderful, sincere, hardworking guy. Anyway, ended up working various odd jobs as the executive officer, flying the president a lot, but working squadron missions, squadron details, a lot of planning with the Secret Service and the White House Communications Agency. What Reagan did was he brought back the Huey that Carter got rid of. We needed the flexibility of having that helicopter back. Also, the Army was long gone. They used to be in the presidential mission, but they were disbanded by Carter. So the Marines were picking up Reagan. Reagan traveled a lot more, used the helicopters a lot, so we brought back the Huey. And it was fun putting it back in the mission, but technology had kind of passed the Huey up. We had added at that time a lot of electronic countermeasures to the helicopter, and then we were adding satellite communications and many other sophisticated radios that the president needed for his mission. Well, the Huey just became overgrossed weight-wise with the standard mission equipment. It could barely carry, couldn't carry the number of passengers the president needed to have with him. Basically the doctor, the aide, the president, and Nancy. So 4 people. It was all we could carry. And that was not comfortable for the White House, and one Secret Service agent. So 5 people on the helicopter, and a lot of times the Secret Service agent would be saying, well, I'd rather have 2 agents on board, and we just couldn't do it because they were big guys.
Yeah.
And they like to carry some extra equipment with them. So anyway, that meant the Hueys had to go. So we got involved in a competition for a replacement helicopter, and that's when the Black Hawk won. But we went through a fun competition, so we got a chance to go around the world and fly different helicopters, see how they would fit into our mission, what their growth potential was.
What were some of the ones that you guys tested?
Well, we tested the Augusta Westland. It's SH-60, can't remember the name of it now, but the Augusta Westland. It was a 3-engine helicopter, which we were really excited about. It had just entered production. It only sold a few of them. Had a tremendous utility. I mean, it was a stout, rugged, very, very capable helicopter, well designed, and designed for the U.S. mission. Its rotor turned the right way.
Oh, really?
French rotors turn the opposite direction.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
So, they sold it for this market. Super helicopter. We looked at the 214 ST as a big Bell Huey. It's a very, very capable helicopter. But it had a teetering rotor, which is something that we didn't want. We wanted a fully articulated rotor. We didn't want the teetering rotor. And like the teetering rotors on the Huey. And it's always a little bit of a concern operating around people that teetering rotor could flap and hurt somebody.
Okay.
And it's prone to, you can't get into a mass bump if you're not real careful.
What?
Mass bumping is a phenomenon where the rotor flaps enough in flight that the rotor actually hits the mast.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that. Okay.
That can sever the mast, and that's catastrophic. So we evaluated lots of different aircraft, and we were actually thinking that what was the growth potential, bring in something now that would replace the H-3 in later years, but we needed a helicopter to supplement the Huey. It didn't take long. The competition wasn't that difficult because the Black Hawk was in production, both in the Navy and the Army. There was a tremendous supply chain, a lot of logistics already in place, so it was an easy move to bring that into the mission. So I spent about 4 years working that, doing the testing, designing the interior, doing the communications layout. Just personally, I didn't do all that, but I was just had companies working on that, working with the Naval Air Systems Command for funding and design, so that we were able to bring in the Black Hawk. And the Black Hawk flew in the mission about 2 to 3 months after I left, after I retired and left the squadron. So it was a neat transition to bring that in, and offers the president and
Because they still use it, don't they?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Quite a bit.
very, very stable.
Yeah.
Very, very good helicopter.
I mean, the presidential squadron still uses it.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and the Navy and the Army still use it all the time.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. They don't really like it in the presidential mission because it's not very executive. It's got a short cabin height. You feel like a sardine when you get shoved in there.
Okay.
Yeah, really tough.
Something like that.
Another thing we did, we had communications became a bigger and bigger issue. Cold War scenarios, continuity of the presidency, evacuation, Russian subs laying off the coast of Virginia. Just constant stress for us in the evacuation mission, and constant challenge to maintain connectivity. So we had to put a communications operator in the helicopter with the president. Well, the Huey, that was the satellite radio killed the Huey, but this was another nail in the coffin. There was no way the Huey could stay in there. So that we had to integrate this communications operator into the H3. And that was the challenge. And when you say communications operator, you know that they have people like that on big Air Force airplanes. And we didn't want to bring in Air Force people into a Marine squadron. So we started looking around, and it turns out the Marine Corps has communications operators who have all the right background checks, secret clearances, top secret clearances. And they work in crypto world of communications. And so we brought those guys into the squadron, and they started flying with the president, sitting in the cabin, handling all the communications and all the radios. Because in reality, on a day-to-day mission, you're flying the president. You fly from Andrews to the White House. Pretty routine, not a problem, unless he gets a phone call. If he's in the air and he gets a phone call, you want to answer it, and you want to have good connectivity. So, and it's got to be covered, cleared, so he can say anything he wants, and nobody in a taxi cab on a taxi cab radio is going to pick it up.
Right.
So if that radio doesn't work, the CEO of the squadron is in deep trouble. And I was in deep trouble many times because the radios didn't work.
Really?
And prior to the communications operator, we depended upon the aide to handle the radios. Well, it wasn't a very good setup for the aides because there were many different buttons to push, and sometimes you had to push twice, and it was not designed well. Human factors was terrible. And the president didn't get the call, or he got the call and he couldn't hear. He'd get frustrated, and stuff would flow downhill, and I'd catch it. A lot of times it was the aide's fault, but it didn't make any difference. We failed in supporting the president, whether it was the aide on the button pushing, or it was my squadron, radio's not working right. So we said, enough of this, let's get some help. We put the communications operator in there. The White House Communications Agency designed a lot of the interface for us. So one of the neatest things in the world now for the White House staff that flies with the president is to get a fax while they're flying with the president that comes across, and the communications officer can hand one of the president's men a fax or something like that while they're airborne.
Really?
They think, golly, this is great stuff.
Yeah.
So it got me out of hot water, got the aides away from operating radios, which they couldn't do, and do all the other stuff they have to do supporting the president.
Wow.
So it became a really much more manageable environment. So those kind of things were fun, besides just flying.
Oh, sure.
Flying the helicopter.
Yeah. What was Reagan like?
Reagan was my hero. He was very sincere, loyal to his people, friendly, nice. Every time we were around him, he was very, very personable and considerate. My mother died when I was in the mission, and he sent flowers and notes constantly about hoping she's getting better.
Wow.
And always concerned about everybody. When we'd go to Camp David, you would see Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, and Nancy, always together, talking, sitting together. They spent a lot of time together. Very loving, nice people. During our times at Camp David,
Would you address him as Ron or Mr. President?
Mr. President.
Really? Okay.
That's definitely wrong to me to refer to him as Ron.
Yeah.
But Ronald Reagan was President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief, just a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, whenever we went to Camp David, he would invite the pilot, the lead Secret Service agent, the doctor, the aide, commander of Camp David, into his cabin, and we'd watch a movie together.
Really?
And he and Nancy would be sitting together, and it was Friday night. I mean, man worked like a dog all week long, or he'd been traveling around the world. He'd come back to Camp David on Friday night, and you'd think that he'd just want to sit back and relax. But he felt like, all these guys are here because I'm here, and he'd invite us in to sit down and watch a movie and enjoy some popcorn or Coke and ice water, whatever you wanted to drink, and as long as it wasn't alcohol, and we'd have a social time. And it wasn't just watching the movie, but he would talk to us a little bit about the week's events. He'd talk to us about the movie. He would talk to us about what we're planning to do next, travel-wise primarily. And then after the movie, he always had some comments. He hated movies that showed nudity, and he hated movies that showed extreme violence for violence sake, or profanity. He said that was low rent, classless. It just doesn't add anything to the movie. He said you can make a movie very sexy and appealing without showing nudity.
Of course, he knows he was an actor.
Yes.
So it's not just coming from a president that has an opinion. It's coming from a president that used to be a professional actor.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's cool.
But they used to play tricks on each other. A lot of times we'd think that we were going to see a first-run movie and sit down and all ready to watch it. And Nancy had told them they wanted to see a Ronald Reagan movie. So we would see one of Ronald Reagan's movies. And that was interesting because I had seen maybe a few of them in my life, but I saw several of them at Camp David when she would play a trick on him and have a Ronald Reagan movie slid in place of one of his. But he would do the same to her. He'd put a Nancy Davis movie in every once in a while, and we would see a movie where Nancy Davis was the star.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And those were, they played jokes on each other all the time.
So they were genuinely, truly in love with each other.
Oh yes, they were idols for see if two people can get along and be devoted. I always referred to schedules as before Nancy or after Nancy schedules. We would get schedules for the president, maybe cover the next 3 to 4 months, and plan trips. And we just shake our head and say, there's no way we could do those schedules. But in reality, Nancy would review the schedules 1 month ahead of time, and all the peripheral stuff had been scratched out. Whether she did it or other people on the staff did it, but the joke always around the White House was that Nancy takes care of him, and she's going to make sure that he's not overextended. He's doing things that are really worthwhile, right for people, right for his cause. And she was very protective of him, and very protective when it came to people being close to him, and concerned that they're maybe using that position to further their own cause instead of serving the president. So she was a very, very pleasure to be around, because she was very, very nice and interesting to talk to, but you knew exactly where she stood.
Really?
It was fun. And she always was very concerned about flying the helicopters, just because it was a helicopter.
Okay.
A lot of times flying at night was a concern to her, or flying up to Santa Barbara in the fog, or even around Washington, D.C. in the snow. And
Just needed extra reassurance.
yeah. A lot of times the aide would say, "Is everything all right?" And I say, "Yeah." And he'd say, "Well, Nancy's concerned, and Ronald is holding her feet, holding her feet in the seat, because their seats faced each other, and she got concerned. She'd put her feet up in his lap, and he would rub her feet."
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
they had a really, really good relationship. And let's see, other things that we would see at Camp David a lot were just their, they'd go riding a lot, and it was really a super escape for them. That he was a very active guy, and he would spend a lot of time riding horses. And the same thing out in California on his ranch. That was their personal time, and we did everything we could to, stay out of the way, stay low profile. The ranch house in California was really small, and there was no opportunity to watch movies there, so we didn't get included in that. It was nice that they had the time to themselves, we were just a taxi cab in reality that made life comfortable for them as people. In the background, we were working really, really hard on continuity of the presidency, making sure the presidency was able to function as a president with the communications and security and transportation stuff. So we were working really hard all the time, or always aware of what was going on. Whether we were at Camp David, whether we were at the White House, or whether we were in California or in Southeast Asia and Japan, France, Germany, Italy, you name it. Those kind of continuity of the presidency things that was our real mission, to make sure that those things went well.
What are some of the more historic flights or places that you went during the Reagan administration?
Probably the most memorable to me was Normandy, going back to Normandy for the 40th anniversary of Normandy.
Wow, yeah.
A big operation. We had, when we flew across the channel on the day that we flew the president across, we had like 23 helicopters flying.
Wow.
And we had fixed wing support. We had an E-2 from the Navy with a radar.
It's a Hawkeye, isn't it?
Yeah, Hawkeye, with his radar systems working, and he was controlling all the traffic and the timing for everybody, because we all had certain destinations to land at the predetermined time. And other international helicopters who were flying their heads of state. So we had like 6 heads of state converging on Normandy at various times during
Wow.
But we always said Reagan had the luck of the weather. As you may remember, the D-Day invasion of Normandy was not good weather. And the days before the invasion was a lot of rain, fog, low humidity, low visibilities, and that's the way it was for us too. We had several rehearsals that we intended to fly from London to Normandy, and that was our road. We picked up the president. We were staying at the ambassador's residence in London, and we flew to Normandy. Well, the days that we flew the rehearsal, we'd get over there and we were in the fog, in the clouds, probably half of the mission.
Really?
So we're flying an IFR route, and then we had to shoot an instrument approach and land at an airport in the Normandy area. Well, the size of this operation. Executing this Normandy invasion was a big deal 40 years later, and that's what we referred to it as. It was the second invasion of Normandy. And 40 years, big event, because the number of people still alive that participated in that event was getting smaller and smaller, and they realized that they needed to have a pretty good event that day. And to start it off, it was going to be Walter Cronkite sitting at Pointe du Hoc, and the president and Walter Cronkite having a conversation about World War II. So that was our target. And everything we did was getting ready for that. We had helicopters pre-positioned in France already in case we couldn't fly from London to Normandy because of weather. We said, well, we could land Air Force One at this airport, and then they could maybe helicopter to Normandy, or we would fly in the helicopter, land at the airport, motorcade. We had more backup plans than, not as many as they did for D-Day, but we had our plans. And all the other countries, the French, the Belgians, England, and their helicopters, we were all trying to stay coordinated, and working with the French was really painful.
Really?
They were hard to work with.
Stubborn or
well, they wanted to do it their way, and they wanted to do it on their time, and they didn't want any pre-meetings, and they said it'll just happen.
Seriously? They didn't want to brief it?
Well, they got serious about briefing it the day before, and we're
Wow.
Americans, we're doing it weeks ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're watching the weather, and the interesting thing about Normandy D-Day in the English environment was that every day on TV they're having reenactments of what happened days prior to D-Day. You know, events at the docks, events in Normandy with the paratroopers going in, or with SEAL teams or espionage teams going in to the country early. You know, different things were happening, and they were being broadcast. So the whole country, the whole environment was up to speed on that. And every time we're looking at these real life things that were happening in the Normandy area, it was rainy, it was foggy, it was cloudy, there was no way we could fly. We flew 2 rehearsals. Both times we had to land at an airport, take a car, and drive to Pointe du Hoc and see the landing zones in the fog. And nervous was beyond belief, because you were asking me for a weather call. You got to tell us, are we going to fly? Can you fly? You know, and so that meant that sometime in the middle of the night, I had to make that weather call.
Oh, wow.
So, with Reagan's luck, and the Lord shining his face on Reagan, we woke up early that morning, and immediately turned on the TV, got on the phone, talking to people, and the people in Normandy said, "We can see the stars," you know.
Really?
And then some of the first paratroopers were going in early morning, and you could see the sun just coming up over the horizon as some of the paratroopers were reenacting jumps into the French countryside. So, yeah, so that's Reagan's luck. Yeah.
Missions ago.
Missions ago. So we flew it, you know. And
that is too neat.
we had Air Force 53s carrying press people, carrying White House dignitaries, carrying all kinds of folks. We had British helicopters carrying the Queen. We had, all kinds of stuff flying across the channel.
Did you get to meet the Queen on this
No.
one? No.
No, never been to Queen. And so we get to Point de Hoc and land, and he does his thing there. Just amazing sight, just a number of people and the World War II veterans.
Absolutely.
You know, makes you cry. You know,
Yeah.
how they did it is just unbelievable. But like terrible loss of life. And then the next events were at the cemeteries in the Normandy area. Many cemeteries there were a lot of American cemeteries with American flags. So we flew there, met the French presidents, a lot of French dignitaries. Reagan does his tours around, and we get back and fly back to the beaches and land on the beach. And that's where each country had a parking area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you come in and land, and the dignitaries got off the helicopters, and then they would go down to the water. And they had a big pavilion set up.
Wow.
So the helicopters and stuff were away from the beach, so our noise and stuff didn't bother other events that were going on down there. But it was really, really fun. You know, I had my Marine Corps uniform on that I always fly, and you know, all the other pilots, you could tell which country they're from kind of by their uniforms and stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, we traded everything we had, you know, for my wings, for his wings and stuff. So
Wow.
Reagan came back and he said, "Where'd you get that hat?" You know? That was kind of neat.
That is so interesting. That is so cool.
Yeah, it was good people. We're flying back
That's such a good memory to have.
flying back across the channel, you know, day over, you know, accomplished, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And the aide says, "Well, we got to go by the USS Eisenhower." And, you know, I knew it was right out there in the English Channel. And I said, and what do you mean? He says, "Well, they've got all the troops dressed in whites on the carrier, spelled Ike, I-K-E.
Oh, really?
And, so we flew across at 2,000 feet, so high, good visibility, nice day. And you see the carrier out there, and we get closer and closer, and then they're setting up the communications, and they said, "Okay, the president's going to talk to these people on the ship." And you know, my heart just went into overdrive. I said, if these radios don't work, I'm dead.
Yeah.
You know, if the aide pushes the wrong button, what are we going to do? You know, this is going to be the end of my career. Got all these people sitting out there. The president's going to talk to them.
Yeah.
So we get closer, and he's talking, and I could hear him talking on one of the other radios, so I selected to hear what he had to say. And he's talking about, you know, your service to the country and what a wonderful commemoration this was, and, you know, freedom reigns throughout the world. A great motivational speech.
He was always good.
Yeah. And then he says, "But I can't tell if you're hearing me. Can you hear me?" And every white hat on that ship went flying. So
Oh, wow.
we're sitting up there and see all these white hats flying, and he starts
At the same time.
Yeah, he starts, you know, continues his talk. You know. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Flew home and slept like a baby for 12 hours. It was a great day. We had these Marines at Normandy with their helicopters, had the Huey helicopters, you know, Normandy, in case we couldn't fly Marine One in, or they flew and Air Force One, and we maybe could use the helicopters to get from the airport to Pointe du Hoc and do something that day if the weather was bad. And the Marines that stayed there and the other military, U.S. military people who stayed in Normandy during that whole evolution, never bought a drink, never bought a meal, everything paid for.
Really?
Just by the French.
Really?
French civilians, no organization, no. But they walked into little hotels. Normandy's not a big place, so it's a small country.
It's my dream to go there one day.
Yeah, gone there yet. But every place they went, said, "It's on me, Hank."
Yeah.
So it was that was really, besides doing the mission, it was the human aspect of it. Was
Sure.
super. That was a highlight, probably one of the real highlights. Where there's something that meant.
That's a good highlight to have.
Yeah. No, it was good. I enjoyed it.
Donations can be made to the Veteran Tales Project on our website at veterantalesproject.com. Thank you for watching.